This episode is brought to you by Shopify. Forget the frustration of picking commerce platforms when you switch your business to Shopify, the global commerce platform that supercharges your selling wherever you sell. With Shopify, you'll harness the same intuitive features, trusted apps, and powerful analytics used by the world's leading brands. Sign up today for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/tech, all lowercase. That's shopify.com/tech.
Hey guys, welcome to this week's podcast episode, and I've got a fantastic guest for you today. Very happy to finally get him on the show, Jake Stahl, and he's going to talk to us all about sales techniques, psychology of communication, innovative learning strategies. He's also going to talk about the 2 out of 10 rule explain, which I'm really interesting. And overall, it's going to be a fascinating business discussion around communication, sales, and psychology. And so, Jake, welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's quite an honor to be here.
Yeah. So introduce yourself and how you got, early influences, what made you start your company, and we'll dive right into it.
Yeah. So I've been in sales training and development for about 30 years. I've been around the mill, I guess you'd say. I've done it in 6 countries, 10,000 plus people. My earliest influences were when I grew up, they had this kind of rule that was kids were to be seen and not heard. So I got to hear a lot of business meetings, but never interject. My dad was a pretty influential person in the community. And as I grew older, I got fascinated by the whole sales process. And why was it that the same sales message worked for one person but didn't work for another? Was it the wording? Was it the cadence of the conversation? What was it that made the difference? And that led to kind of a lifelong journey to where I am today, still trying to figure the whole thing out.
Yeah, I'm still trying to figure things out. I'm always making tweaks, major or minor. One thing you talk about is this, as a fractional chief learning officer, you've got this concept of adaptive conversational blueprint, and explain how this model shifts sales training and how it makes it effective.
Yeah, sure. So my degree is in psychology, and I have certifications in neurolinguistic programming. And one thing you learn quickly is that there is no said conversation. Nothing is pat or set in stone. And over the years in sales training, I got a little frustrated with sales training companies that just gave you a script and said, this is going to work on everybody. You just go out and use it. So through the years, I started to develop a technique called the Adaptive Conversational Blueprint that allows you to listen to the person on the other end of the phone and start to adapt to their style, their verbiage, the way they like to think, the way they understand and make decisions. And the technique I show not only brings in the neurolinguistic programming, so it talks about the modalities of other people, and it not only talks about mirroring that we know so well, you tilt your head, but it also goes a lot deeper than that. And it even talks about localization of message. So if I'm a New Yorker selling to another New Yorker, that's going to sound a lot different than if I'm a New Yorker selling to somebody in Savannah, Georgia. So my blueprint literally takes every second of the conversation and allows you to adapt to that other person quickly, helping you establish trust in a super short period of time and actually build a relationship versus having something more transactional.
Yeah. And I really, these learning and communication, and I love this idea of adaptation, and especially in these dynamic interactions and environments where things are changing. You talk on the technology. So the other question is, you talk about this idea of what is this 2 out of 10 rule explain? What is that?
Yeah, so the 2-10 rule was a rule I came out with years ago. And it came out because I noticed that as salespeople, and I was one for a long time, as salespeople, we tend to start off with, hi, how are you? To which we really don't care about the answer. And we go into a diatribe about our product, to which the other person often doesn't care. And it started to occur to me that every second and every minute we talk really sets the stage for the upcoming seconds and minutes, right? People are always deciding if they're going to continue to listen to us. And a great real life example is your cell phone rings and it's that person where when you look at their number, you go, oh, I just can't do that person right now. So we all know that person that never adapts, right?
Yeah.
So one thing I found over the years, and it's become really a rule of thumb of mine, is for every 10 minutes we talk, we generate about 2 minutes worth of questions in the other person. So if you think about in the terms of a speech, you're about 10 minutes in, you're thinking, oh, you know what? I wonder what they meant by, and those questions start to build up. So what I did was I kind of flipped it on its head and I said, what if I check in with somebody every 2 minutes? And at the end of 10 minutes, I just kind of round it out and I ask if they have any questions. So every 2 minutes I'm interacting, and at the end of 10 minutes, hey, listen, I've been blabbing for a long time. Has anything I said struck with you, or do you have any questions? So all I did was I took police tape, I wrapped it around a listening skills workshop, and I said, let's set time parameters on how often we check in and when. And what I found was that when I work with companies to do this, we have so much as 3x people's sales just on changing the way we interact during a conversation. So it's an amazing process. And so I called it my 2-10 rule.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. How do you deal with this? Because what I find with sales is I know they're trying to stick to a script. And what I found is they're usually, like, if you listen to them, they'll just go for lack of a better term, they go on and on and on. And then and then when you try and interject, they try and overject you and continue on and on. Is that traditional sales training, or is that just kind of dominating personality? And how do you deal with that? It's quite ineffective, when from the standpoint of a client.
Yeah, and I certainly would not want to cast aspersions on any sales training method. They all have their value, and I don't want to take away from that. But I think with any profession, we get a subgroup of people that feel that if I tell, I sell. And in that same environment, you get some sales directors that say, okay, you're going to close 1 out of every 50 calls. So make 200 calls and we'll get 4 closes. And I think that further reinforces the fact that just dial and tell, and eventually math will work in your favor and you'll get some people that will purchase from you. The weird thing about that is that resembles nothing else in real life. We don't think I'm going to go to 30 grocery stores before I pick my loaf of bread. We don't think I'm going to date 600 people before I pick my soulmate. We investigate the people we're talking to, and we look at the information that's out there. I kind of marvel at the fact that there's so much information on any given person available on the web, and yet a salesperson will not look into them just a little bit before they make the call. So I think every sales training has its place, and I think all the methods out there have their value. What I don't think has its value is us not trying to build a relationship with someone and trying to just give our message regardless of what they want on the other end of the phone.
Yeah. Yeah, it's quite interesting. And I actually kind of use it to screen like the really good, like if I want to work with someone, I want to see their communication style. And if I feel like I'm just, just being talked at and talked to versus, a dialogue, it's an easy way to screen out individuals. So, the next question I have is, so you have this idea of this, challenges with impact of specific words. And I know there's this field called neuro-linguistic programming, and how, I'm not sure if you use that, but talk about impact of specific words and examples, how shifting wording can transform like a sales or a training session.
Yeah, so there's 2 different ways to look at this. The neuro-linguistic programming is a relatively in-depth science in that it looks at the way people learn. Am I a visual learner? Am I an auditory learner? Am I a kinesthetic learner? So there's certainly ways to look at and determine how someone prefers to be communicated with. But I think what you may be asking is about specific words that can make a huge impact. And if you read social psychology, it's fascinating what can be found. I'll give you a great example. There was a study done in the copy room of a New York City public library. And scientists basically took interns and said, I want you to go cut in line at the copy center. As you may be aware, New Yorkers aren't fans of being cut in line. So nobody was let in. So the social psychologist said to the interns, now I want you to give a good reason. Say, because I have a child waiting in the car, because I'm late for dinner, because I have to go back to work, and see if they'll let you cut in line. 60%. So 6 out of every 10 people said, sure, go ahead and jump in line. Overall, this isn't fascinating. If you give a good reason, human beings probably going to let you in line. But here's where it gets cool. So they changed the experiment once more, and they told the interns, when you jump in line, I want you to just say, I want to jump in line because I need to make copies. Yeah. Super obvious, really dumb excuse. But what they found was that the compliance rate was almost the same. So people weren't interested in why. They were just interested in the fact that there was a reason that justified them letting people in line. Cool psychological technique. But the reason it's so effective in business is if we're talking as entrepreneurs or we're talking as business people, and we're not telling people the why that you should do something, giving them the because, you're really lowering your chances of success. But it's fascinating to me that one word like that can make such a huge difference, regardless of what comes before or after.
Yeah. Yeah, really powerful. And I've actually, talking to people, I actually watch how I frame things and how I say word, like if they're, like you were talking about, like if they're visual, you want to use more colorful words. And if like, they're auditory, you want to use like words that are like resonating, and just kind of framing it and just kind of seeing it from their perspective and talking with them from their point of view, because that way you can, the other question is this importance of conversational cadence and the psychological basis, and how does this influence the speaker and listener? And you also talk about rapport as well. So how do you use those when you're making sales?
Yeah, so the biggest question that I can ask that I think will resonate with everybody is, what's your favorite topic to talk about? It's yourself, right? We all love to talk about us. Yeah. It's natural, it's human. But the other thing that's natural and human is reciprocation. So if I flatter you and I show genuine interest in you, and it's genuine flattery, not made up, but if I show genuine interest in you and we talk about you a lot, something really wild happens. Eventually you say, you know what, we've talked an awful lot about me. I don't know anything about you yet. Yeah. So if we establish that cadence, that every 2 minutes I check in and I ask questions and I'm showing interest and we're making it about you, eventually your receptivity to the content that I have is going to be at its peak. In the beginning, when we have no rapport, your receptivity is at its low point. But later on, if I put in the time, it's at its peak, and we can have that discussion. And then my message is going to make the biggest impact. I think the single hardest thing right now in the AI revolution is the fact that we've made it that it's a sales pitch immediately. And then there's an automated follow-up sales pitch. I think the reality of AI is, once we get AI to actually show interest and empathy with the other person without selling ourselves, I think that's when we're going to hit the pinnacle of it. But right now we're kind of at the front end. And I think we're still learning about what it can and can't do in building rapport. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And so, kind of rounding it out and, with the listeners out there, talk about this, how people can find you and reach you and learn about this new adaptive sales training process that's really, very dynamic, and with the times you can able to adjust in real time with clients.
Yeah, so you can find me on LinkedIn under Jake Stahl. You can also find me on my website at Jake Stahl Consulting, and I offer a free 1-hour consult. So if people want to know whether they can use it to improve themselves, because I do neurolinguistic programming coaching with people, if they want to use it to improve themselves or their business, I'll give them an hour free of time, and at the end, we'll decide if we work with each other, or maybe there's somebody I can refer you to that can help guide you on your journey. But risk-free talk, more than happy to put time on the schedule.
And I love that. And for all the audience, I really enjoyed talking with Jake, and he's got a really fascinating and just kind of very strategic approach, very surgeon-esque way to make sales, as opposed to the traditional blunt end approach. And be sure to follow him on LinkedIn, check out his book and his coaching, and schedule a 60-minute meeting. And all these links will be in the show notes. And thanks so much for coming on.
Thank you. It was great being here.